This is the Power 5 with Cal Lee and Warren Shaw.
Welcome, everybody. Cal Lee, Warren Shaw of the Baseline NBA podcast, and this is our Power 5, where we evaluate and give you the top 5 teams in the NBA. 4 weeks have gone by, which we believe is an adequate sample size for us to be able to dig down and establish who should be considered the top 5 teams in the NBA. This is a new segment that we're rolling into this season. And I'm so excited about this because it's another avenue to build up conversation, to get our listeners and to get new listeners who are intrigued about who they believe and who we believe should be considered the top 5. So you know how we always do when we do our show, the Baseline NBA podcast. You know I got to bring in my brother from another mother. I got to roll him in real deep, heavy in, get it in early like no other. My brother, Warren Shaw, repping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida for www.shawsports.net. Mr. Shaw, what's good, man? You ready to rock and roll with this Power 5?
I am, man. Salute to all the fans listening to Baseline. This is going to be a great segment, something that you said. We're bringing in new for this 2016-2017 season. Hoping to stir that conversation, get you guys' thoughts. Make sure you hit us up on Twitter. And by the way, make sure you give us a rating on iTunes, too. Haven't talked about that a little bit, so we need those ratings, too, man. Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, I know. You kind of nudging them. Just say, hey, don't forget.
Hey,
but,
man.
You know, I get it. You know, that's how we roll, man. But no, listen, we always appreciate every single person who's had an opportunity to listen to the Baseline NBA podcast. Clearly, we've been doing this for quite some time. And we've actually, so it's interesting, Shaw, before we get into our Power 5 rankings, it's interesting. We never really delved into this. We've talked about a lot of things, and I don't know if it's something that I felt personally. I know for me, I felt personally that doing these Power 5 rankings can be skittish at times because it's so difficult to gauge through the course of an 82-game season. But when you look at how the NBA parity has fared over the last couple of seasons, I think that it is necessary to establish these type of rankings so that it could be truly realized which are considered the dominant basketball teams and the teams that, ultimately we are going to start making mentioning of, because there's going to be 1 or 2 teams that are going to look to try to crack this top 5 at some point during the course of this season.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's fun to talk about it simply because, as you said, a month is a great sample size in general. And you really get to see which teams have performed well to begin the season. But more importantly, when we get back to it, another week or so, whatever the case may be, well, are those teams still there? Is that 5 still exactly the same? Or like you said, does somebody sneak in, from the middle of the pack somehow, and then now they're the team that we really should be looking at and focusing in on? So this should be a great conversation for everybody to tune into. I hope everybody enjoys this segment, man.
Definitely. So make sure to get at my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA, or get at me at GameFace Lee, and the show's Twitter handle, the Baseline NBA podcast. Get at us at NBA Baseline. So without further ado, let's get right in to the Power 5.
Number 5.
All right, Shaw. So number 5, I know, we're going to stop from the bottom up. You know what I'm saying? Started from the bottom and now we here. Who do you have as your 5th best team in the NBA?
Well, based on our rankings here, we have to go ahead and show a little bit of love and maybe some disrespect at the same time. The San Antonio Spurs. This is a team that, by all intents and purposes, is obviously one of the best teams in the Western Conference and have been for a little while. Fell short of expectations last year in the playoffs. Don't need to get into all that. But as we record, right now they're doing their thing. Right now, slab in the kind of the middle of the pack offensively. Offensive rating at 10th, defensive rating of 8th. So that's the good, but not the elite defense that they're playing just a season ago. That belongs to another team that we'll get to a little bit later in our Power 5 in terms of elite defense. So the San Antonio Spurs team is really trying to find their way. Pau Gasol started off the season really rough, wasn't even getting a full allotment of minutes, and now it seems like Pop is leaning on him a little bit more. Kawhi came out blazing as an MVP, and he started to slow down as the Spurs are now getting a little bit more balance between Kawhi, LMA, and Pau Gasol.
Yeah, you just can't seem to kill off a Greg Popovich team. I mean, they come out ready to put a stamp on that Southwest Division, which again is starting to kind of resurge itself, kind of resurrect itself as being that competitive division just a couple of seasons ago. And so I got to give it to Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs team that if you want to make a statement about being considered a top 5 team when a lot of people are kind of skating you off to the side because everyone's enamored with the quote unquote super teams, good way to do that is by blasting the Western Conference champion Golden State Warriors by 29 points on their home court opening night, right? So that to me is an impressive win. Then take on the fact that they are 4-3 against teams that are above 500, and Kawhi Leonard is playing like killer what? You know what I'm saying? So this is a type of basketball team that as the season progresses, because remember, they've got some new pieces, you know, and it's going to take a little while, but this is definitely going to be a top 5 team. Probably is going to inch themselves a little bit closer to your point again too, Shaw. Defensively, they're not where they were last year, but I can see them vastly improving themselves to be somewhere within the proximity of what they did. I mean, last year was, you know, historical, but ultimately this is the type of basketball team that from a defensive perspective, they'll be right in it. I think what's promising is that they look a lot better offensively, which I think can bode well for them being a dangerous team in the Western Conference.
Number 4.
All right, Shaw, number 4, right? So who do you have listed as the 4th best team in the NBA?
I'm looking at those Atlanta Hawks, man. You know, this is the squad that we definitely did not want to write off. We wanted to show them some love, and when we did our Southeast Division preview, we came to the realization that, you know, this team is still pretty much elite when it comes to the Southeast Division, and they deserve respect. And they've come out this season and done a great job, you know, going out there and with some, like you said, mentioned earlier, some impressive wins, especially that win against the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland. Just again, so to me, this team is where everything that they're supposed to be. Second in defensive rating right now, behind, again, that team we're going to mention a little bit later on. 12th in offensive rating, just getting everything they need from Dwight Howard at this early stage of the season. And then Dennis Schroeder hasn't disappointed. He's lived up to all the expectations and potential hype that I was the potential hype that I was heaping upon him to begin the year. I really like this squad, and that's why we have the
shrewdness, my man. Taming of the shrewdness. I like it. Man, I know Cleveland fans ain't gonna like what I'm about to say, but I have the Cleveland Cavaliers as the 4th best team right now in the NBA. Look, definitely hot out the gate. You know, topping off at least 8 wins straight, I believe. They won 8 straight before they lost their first one. And they lost their first one to those Atlanta Hawks, the team that you have as the 4th best team. And I got to tell you, even though this is a team that has hoisted the O'Brien Trophy, and I'm sure they're going to be a top 2 team, no question. I'm just looking at their body of work within the first 4 weeks. And to me, it's very clear in the early outset that if Tyronn Lue is going to start resting LeBron James, and this basketball team can't figure out a way to beat an Indiana Pacers team that to me is underperforming right now, then that bodes about the dependency that this basketball team still needs in having LeBron James on that basketball court, taking nothing away from what they should be as a top 2, top 3 team in the NBA. I'm just saying that the necessary supporting parts should be in a position to win games. And I'm just wondering, will that compromise what could be an impressive season for this Cavaliers team because of the fact that we are going to see moments, or we're going to see times where Tyronn Lue is going to rest LeBron James. Not taking anything away from Kyrie Irving or Kevin Love. And clearly those guys are balling, a little bit quiet to the start of the season. But when the team collectively is winning basketball games, no one's going to say much of anything. But it makes me wonder, Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, there have been tendencies for these guys to disappear. So while they clearly are going to be a top 2, top 3 team, no question, as of this moment, because they lost to the Atlanta Hawks and because they lost to the Indiana Pacers, 2 teams that are still in their conference. And they weren't impressive losses either. It wasn't like they stayed close. They look like a team that clearly needs LeBron James. I have them as the 4th best team right now.
Number 3.
All right, number 3. Go ahead and jump on in, brother. I know you got the 3rd best team ready, aim, cock, loaded, fire.
Well, not really. I mean, because like I said, we just talked about it. My 3rd best team was the Cavs. So I mean, you know, so you know, in that conversation, the breadth of that conversation, you know, I think we've said all we need to say about them, and we just need to see, if they can stay interested the entire season. As I said, Kevin Love, is playing pretty well to begin the year, 21 and 11. If you want to give him that, 10.8 rebounds to be exact as we record the show. Kyrie, 23.9, so call it 24. And LeBron, 23, 9, and 9. Nearly almost near averaging triple double. But as you just said, 37 minutes a game, leading the team in that is not where they wanted him to be. So he's definitely going to be taking these nights off. And I think they're going to want to get his minutes down towards that 33 to 35 mark. Again, you may think 1 or 2 minutes is not that big of a deal, but trust me, it is, especially over the course of the NBA season.
Well, listen, number 3 for me, I have the Golden State Warriors. And look, I'm sure everybody has the Golden State Warriors, eventually going to be the best team in the NBA. I don't think that that's going to be, I don't know whether or not that's going to take place until we ultimately see them take on a team that I really think I know that we're going to have some form of conversation in a little bit. The Los Angeles Clippers. I think that now everybody is starting to look at this and say, wow, these two teams, man, can't wait for them to get it on, and they're in the division. So it's not going to be just one time or 2 times they play each other. Every single game that they're going to play each other, I think, is going to be significant through the course of this regular season. But what I've already seen from this Golden State Warriors team is that this is still a team on a learning curve. And maybe, Bob Arum might give people a reason to see this possible 1-2 matchup at some particular point. But those last few games, man, the Golden State Warriors have been looking like the type of team that everybody feared was going to kind of walk out on that basketball court and do what they didn't want them to do. When you look at Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, basically Steph Curry was sleepwalking the first few games, and then now he just decided to say, I think I'm going to start scoring as many points as Kevin Durant is scoring. So now they basically are somewhere around the same amount of points scored between each other. Just ridiculous, the amount of firepower this basketball team has. But I think, again, their Achilles heel was their Achilles heel last year. And again, I'm seeing this being their Achilles heel again this year. They're not the same team that they were defensively like they were a couple of seasons ago. And I tend to wonder about that. And while they're still scoring 117 points per game, roughly, which is around 3 or 4 points more than what they did last year already at the outset of this season, their defensive rating, again, has continued to slip. So ultimately, they're going to have to figure this thing out. This team is at its best when there is a happy balance between their offense and their defense. But there's no question the Golden State Warriors basically can slip, fall, break their elbows, both their kneecaps, and still be the 3rd best team in the NBA at this moment in time.
Number 2.
Shaw, who do you have as the 2nd best team in the NBA right now?
Hey, we did it again. Same team we just talked about. So, not much more to say on them. They do have some turnover issues, the Golden State Warriors, and, that continues to be an issue. It was the same thing last year, the year before that too. They just don't clean it up. They do play sloppy at times. But I really think this squad is, again, they are rounding into form, and they're going to be the terror, the exact terror that everybody thought they were going to be. You're starting to see them take that form right now.
All right, if you are Kevin Durant, or in the words of Kevin Durant, don't nobody give a damn about the Atlanta Hawks. Well, you should. You should give a damn about the Atlanta Hawks. This is a basketball team, Shaw. Then listen, no matter how many times we set the standard, the sky's the limit. We somehow keep trying to clip them Icarus wings with these Atlanta Hawks, boy. They know no boundaries when it comes to them defying the odds. And this, again, is a basketball team that we've somehow written off. Maybe we said, okay, they'll win the Southeast Division. But they're not going to be able to contend and run with some of the better teams, obviously, in the Eastern Conference. By default, we've already given it to the Cleveland Cavaliers. But this is, again, the Hawks team with the 2nd best defensive rating in the NBA. And look, this is a team that has established a little bit of an identity different from where they've been in years past. And I hate saying this, man, but Dwight Howard is actually bringing a level of physicality to that front court presence that just wasn't there with Horford and Millsap. And not to take anything from both of those guys, but maybe that dynamic just isn't good enough when you're playing against the likes of a LeBron James, or you're playing against, teams that have a more physical front court like the Indiana Pacers. And maybe this is exactly what Mike Budenholzer needs to get this team to take that next step. Now, obviously, we're talking about this team being, top 5 in the NBA. But look, man, the defensive part of it, you've got down pat. Now, all you got to do is really improve on the offensive part, and they've got weapons. Schroeder having an excellent season thus far, and still not even peaking with his skills and capabilities. What about the Bays Gaze, man? Kent Bazemore. I mean, this guy in the last 5 games is playing off the wall and he's just playing at a phenomenal rate. So, deservedly so. And they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers as of this moment in time. Second best team in the NBA, in my opinion, the Atlanta Hawks.
Number 1.
All right. And now for the top team in the NBA. Who's holding that number 1 spot for you, bro?
Prisoner of the moment. And, I think, we have to go ahead and give props to the LA Clippers. We featured them in our last NBA baseline show, on the breakdown and all the things that they're doing. Again, it starts with defense, starts with that bench that seems to be much improved as well too. Doc Rivers really has these guys humming and playing great basketball. Much has been said about Blake Griffin and his rededication to the game, if you will, after some mishaps last season, and he really understands that he has to be a leader on this roster alongside Chris Paul to get them to that next level. And they started off the season firing on all cylinders. Everybody's playing well. Even JD Redick started off the season, so now he's humming again. Just hit 7 threes, and they're actually in their last loss as we record this show. But that team really seems to have it all together right now. And I was in a barbershop. I'm not gonna make a long story short here. And they weren't, my barbers weren't feeling them. They weren't feeling the Clippers. Like, oh, just so what? They have a good record. That doesn't mean they're good. But again, as we talk about it right now, today, a month into the season, this is probably the best team, and they played the best in the NBA thus far.
Yeah, again, and this is the criteria to me. It's who is the best team at this moment in time. And when you have a record like what the LA Clippers is, listen, if you don't want to consider them the best team in the NBA, fine. But you definitely should have them as your top 5 team, because I don't know anyone else that has double-digit wins already, right? So to me, that says something. So, despite a bad loss to the Memphis Grizzlies, this team still fought hard. They fought well, and they still maintained a level of competitiveness. This team still owns a ridiculous 14.9 point differential. Okay, right now there's no other team doing what the Clippers have done in the early outset within this first month of basketball, and deservedly so. They are the best team, in my opinion, in the NBA, and they still sport the 7th best scoring in the NBA as well too, not just what they do defensively, a paltry 96.7 in a defensive rating. So to your point, Shaw, I completely agree with you. I think the Los Angeles Clippers are the best team at this moment in time. But again, anything can happen, and ultimately it is going to come down to when the Clippers do play an Atlanta Hawks or a Golden State Warriors or a Cleveland Cavaliers or a San Antonio Spurs. They've already have beaten the Spurs team. But I'm just saying, when you see them play those teams multiple times, then we'll really be able to tell where they are. But right now, top team in the NBA. Absolutely. All right. So now that we have gone ahead and we've listed our top 5, now we shall give you the Power 5. That's right. The culmination of my top 5 and Shaw's top 5. We bring them together, form them like Voltron, and thus we shall give you what we consider is the Power 5 for this week. So at number 5, the San Antonio Spurs, 5th best team. Number 4, the Atlanta Hawks. Number 3, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Number 2, the Golden State Warriors. And taking the top spot, and of course, it's because we made them top dogs in the NBA, the LA Clippers. That is our Power 5. We want to hear from you. Are you feeling our Power 5? Are you feeling our takes of who we consider as the top 5 teams in the NBA? Be sure to get at us at NBA Baseline. Remember to get at my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA, or get at me at GameFace Lee. And be sure to check out the Baseline NBA podcast, also available on Instagram. Shaw, what's the Instagram handle?
At NBA_baseline. We had to get that underscore in there because somebody with 2 followers is holding it up on us, but no doubt, it's all love. We appreciate you nevertheless. But yeah, at NBA_baseline on IG, man.
But we have no problem with you joining the dark side. So those 2 followers, come check the real NBA, the real Baseline NBA podcast, the real NBA Baseline doing our thing. So for the Baseline, Kylie, Warren, Shaw, be sure to keep us locked in on all the major platforms: iTunes, Stitcher Radio Player, FM, Microsoft TuneIn, Google Music. And be sure to check us out each and every single week of the Baseline NBA podcast. This is the Power 5, and we'll catch up with you next time.